I'm so glad you could join us today. Those of you who are here in person, braving the weather, although I don't know if the weather's really started just yet. Those of you tuning in virtually, I hope you're enjoying your robe or whatever comfy clothes you're wearing, hopefully at home, especially if you're in Michigan. We also have so many members who join us from other countries even. So welcome to all of you who are joining us today. So excited to see those of you in the room and to know that those of you at home are watching virtually. I am so excited for today's event, and not just because it was supposed to happen last month and got canceled, and then almost again today with the weather, but because here with us today are two of my very dear friends who I know you will just love hearing from. So we're going to dive right in. So my name is Julie Holton. I'm co-director of Startup Grind Lansing. I am also the owner and principal strategist of M Connections Marketing Agency, and recently started hosting a show during the pandemic called Expert Connections. Before that, I spent some time working in TV news, and that's how I met these two lovely people today. Join me in welcoming Emmerich and Bob Hoffman. Emmerich is an Emmy award-winning news anchor and reporter for WILX TV 10. You can watch her every weekday evening at 5, 5:30, 6, 10 and 11. She is one of the hardest workers I know, truly, and with a huge heart being here today. From personal experience as her executive producer back in the day, I can tell you that she cares very deeply about helping her community, and that's a big part of what drives her and others that she works with. And I think will be part of the conversation today about what drives people to go into news as a career and how that translates to you when you're trying to pitch them a story. So Anne, welcome.
Thank you.
Bob Hoffman is also a dear friend. He co-hosts the Morning Blend on Fox 47 and reports weekly in a segment called Good Neighbors, which I just absolutely love. Those who know Bob know that that is a great fit for him. He believes in helping people discover the power of kindness. He also developed a Pass It Forward initiative. You've probably heard of it through a nonprofit called Epiphany Now. Bob, I'm so glad that you are here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Back in the day, quick intro on me. Back in the day, I worked as a producer and executive producer and covered some big stories like the 35W bridge collapse, the Republican National Convention when it was in St. Paul and Minneapolis when I lived there. So my background is in telling stories. And back in the day, I was one of the people like Bob and Ann on the receiving end of those emails that you might send to media outlets to try to get them to cover your story. And so one of the things we're going to talk about today is how often, guys, do you delete those emails without even opening them? And what can we do to not be one of those emails? So I'm going to open it up today and really just first start by talking about what makes a good story. And let's start with you. When you are considering what news stories you're going to cover in any given day, what makes a good story?
A good story is something that's going to impact our viewers, something that they care about. I like stories that have that human element, someone or something that did something extraordinary, unique, a business that's reaching out to people in the community for some reason, or has an employee that did something special. You know, we get a lot of press releases, and I'll be honest with you, I probably have 500 in my inbox right now, and I will go to work and hit delete, delete, delete. I do look at the subject line to make sure I'm not deleting something important, but 9 times out of 10 they're from marketing companies in DC or something, and they're hired to kind of promote somebody around here. And to me, I'd rather have that business owner reach out to me personally and say, hey, you know, I have this story, what do you think? And that won't go into my one unfocused email box. That'll go to my focused if you send it just to me, and then I will respond to you, because I'm not going to not respond to someone local who has a story idea and that I might make a connection with, and that later on down the road, maybe I'm not interested in that story, but down the road we've developed a connection and we can work on something in the future.
Yeah. For me, it's the human element too. I mean, obviously with the stories that I do, it's all about connectedness, and it's all about how are humans impacting other humans. And Also, I think that it's important when you write a media release or you're working with the media to make sure that you have a succinct message and you're not giving away everything. One of the things that drives me nutty when well, I don't do this anymore, but when I was the producer, is we would be inundated with releases, and some of them were 2 to 3 pages.
Yes.
And it doesn't say when, where, what's happening. And what happens is we're all so wrapped up in what we believe in, and we're so excited about it, and we assume that everyone else is going to be excited about it, which is great, but think about what the connectedness is and make it succinct.
Yeah. That's a really great point. I think sometimes too that we make assumptions. So let's kind of dive in and give an example. So let's say that a business in East Lansing is celebrating maybe 35 years in business. Really big deal, right? All of us know how much it takes, how much work it takes to make it to those milestones. So let's say 35 years in business, and maybe it's a coffee shop. Is that going to be something that at the surface level is interesting to you, just in general, 35 years in business?
Well, for a good neighbors, yes, because right, they've been a good neighbor. So what I'm going to say is,
oh, but that's right there. You just said though they've been a good neighbor.
Right.
So what will make the story more interesting than just 35 years?
Well, what makes the story interesting is I want to know, do you have a customer that's been a long time customer that's come in? I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear the people that come to you. I don't want to hear about you because you're celebrating you, but let me hear from the people that can tell me about you, that tell me about your impact.
I love that. What has this coffee shop
meant in the community for 35 years? What has been the lasting impact or something interesting and unique about this coffee shop?
And that's the way I would pitch the story, is like, we've been around for 35 years and Sally and Joe and John have been coming for 20 years, and they've made this coffee shop, they're part of the fabric. And I want to hear their stories, like something that's happened with them. So I would dive in, I would go that angle. And with that angle, I'd say, look, we've got 35 years here from this establishment. Because if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't be here.
I love that. So thinking it through to the next level, what is the impact of your business? What is the impact of your startup? And what real people, we used to call it real people as if there are fake people, but we would say, like, who are the real people in this story? Because the real people are not the talking heads or the officials. We want to hear from the people being impacted. And yes, the business owner has a lot to add to the story, but it's really the flavor, if you will, of that coffee shop story comes from the patrons, the people who have been impacted. And you were giving me an example the other day, not just of an email, but a phone call you received prior to getting an email. Can you talk about what relationships mean to you as far as when someone wants to pitch a story? Because you mentioned you get a lot of emails in your inbox, and you were telling me recently about someone who had given you a phone call to check in prior to sending a press release.
Yes, I can't remember which one that was, but
you've had a little bit going on in the last couple of weeks.
Yes. But that personal connection with me and that few minutes that we spend on the phone, you're going to be more direct with me about what you're trying to do and your motive for the story idea. Whereas if I'm getting your release, it's, I don't know what time of day I'm opening it up and where my brain is at that moment, if there's breaking news. And so for me, that personal connection, and that's how I do my stories, is the people that I connect with on a regular basis. And, we keep in contact by phone, text, let me know if there's something going on. And those relationships are so important to build with the media, because when there is something going on, you can just text me and I already know you and I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to respond to you. But if it's in an email, I find it kind of impersonal, and I don't know how many other people are getting it. And like Bob said, some of them are 2-3 pages long, and I just get so much email, I don't have time to read everything that comes in. So if the subject line sparks my interest, I might open it and see, scan it and see if it's something we might do. But if it's gone out in a blast, I'm not that interested, because I'm looking for unique stories and visual stories that we can tell. And having that conversation with you, you might not know what the story is, but once we have that short conversation, I may ping into something that you don't even see. And then I'm like, oh, then we can come up with a cool idea. But that's kind of my approach.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, what would you say are some common mistakes that businesses make when they're trying to pitch a story?
I'm gonna use, because I'm a business, so I work at Wharton Center as the public relations manager. So I'm pitching the stories, right? But because of my experience in the newsroom, I know what works. And what works is making sure that you have everything the media needs. Make it very easy for them. As Ann said, establish a relationship with them. Try to establish a relationship with them. But you want to have, so Wharton Center has a media site. If we have anything going on, any show, you can go to the media site and download the media release. You can download images. If we have B-roll, you can download that. Make it extremely easy for the media to cover you, and make it so that they can get in and they can get out, because they are on a tight timeline. When you establish that relationship with the media, they're more apt to work with you in the future, because they're going to listen to you and say, oh, you know what, I know that if we do this story, we're not going to be there all day. He's going to, or she's going to give me what I need and want, and it's going to be an easy story. So put yourself in the reporter's position. You've got, 5 or 6 different stories you've got to pull that day. When they come to you, make it easy. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I love that. And maybe, Ann, you could talk us through what is a typical day like? Because I think for us, sometimes we think, well, I'm just going to send my email and then I'll sit and wait for them to respond. But I'm sure timing plays a part in when you're even reading emails and what's going on. So can you talk us through what, for a reporter, what is a typical day like, including how many stories do they cover?
First of all, I just want to kind of go off topic, and then I'll get to that point, is if you establish yourself as an expert in whatever you do in your business, and I know you and something comes up and your expertise, and we can get a hold of you and we can get to you quickly, you're golden. Like, you're going to be our expert person. So I just want to put that out there while I was thinking about that, because we do rely on so many experts in our community, and we know who they are, and it's like, oh, this is going on. Oh, call so-and-so. They know all about that, and they can talk to us. But going back to Julie's question on reporters' days, they get up in the morning, they scan the news, they're trying to see the today hook. We're television news, so it has to be relevant today. Not necessarily has to be relevant, but that's going to be our major discussion in the editorial meeting, is what's going on today, why are we going to cover this today? So they're looking for those news hooks of today, what's going on, what's important, what are people thinking about, what are people talking about, and then they're coming up with ideas. Now, good reporters will get on the phone and start calling their contacts and being like, hey, anything going on? Or, hey, there's this railway derailment, and I know you are a logistics company and you might be waiting for things to come, or is this affecting you? We want to tell those local stories. And so, coming up with the ideas of what, and then when they go into their meeting, they're pitching it. I've already talked to so-and-so, and he told me he's waiting for loads of stuff and this train crash, and now he can't get them to his customers. So there's some impact from a national story or even a local story. So those are the ways we pitch stories. And then they'll, if they've already talked to you, they're, usually what I used to do is I'd say, okay, well, I'm going to pitch this story. I'll call you right back after my meeting. Can you talk at like noon or 1? And then when I pitched it, I'd be like, well, so-and-so's available at noon. So, so then I would go out and do my story, because if it's easy for the news managers and they're like, well, she's already got that in the bag. All right, Ann, go do that. So that's kind of how reporters are thinking. They want to get it set up so they get to do that story that they've already bought into. They're already interested in it. They have like some skin in the game and they really want to do it. So that's kind of my approach and a lot of people.
Yeah, and I want to point out too, let's look at this for a moment from the business perspective. All the startups and business owners, founders in the room, think about the news outlets as a business. They have a limited number of resources. They have certain amount of staff, equipment to get the job done. Their job, of course, is to go out and find and tell stories. And we have two, TV professionals up here, so their job is they're on deadline. same day deadline to get things on the air that same day. So things have to be timely, they have to be relevant that day. Not, what's interesting yesterday, because now that's old news. They're also, as businesses, competing. There's a lot more competition now than there was even 10 years ago when I was still in news. So, and even then, I remember 20 years ago, when Twitter was becoming a thing, and how I remember having talks in the newsroom of, are we going to break news on Twitter, or are we going to not say anything on Twitter because then our competitors suddenly know about? Those were conversations we had early on. Now there's no question. You break news as it happens, because if you don't, someone else will beat you to it. And not only that, if that news breaks at 11 in the morning, if it's breaking right now, by 5 o'clock, everyone already knows about it. So how are you going to tell that story in a different way, as Anne has pointed out? So again, thinking of it from a business standpoint, they have limited resources. So if you want them to cover your story, how are you making it as easy as possible for them to get everything they need to tell that full story? And from your perspective, to tell the story you want them to tell. So the easier you make it for them, if you say, hey, I'm a coffee shop, I've got, Joe and Sally lined up for you, and we'll have this community event from, such and such time to such, I've got everything lined up for you and ready to go. Now it's more likely that they're going to tell that story instead of, hey, they're just going to wander up and who knows what someone's going to say, and if that's going to convey the kind of story you're looking for them to tell.
I want to go off of what you said, is because a lot of times, you'll get a release from a company, you'll go out and do the story. A lot of people get nervous, especially with TV. They'll talk about everything but the message that they really should be talking about. So be prepared for the coverage. What are the top things that you want to get across to make sure that that reporter knows? And plan that ahead of time. So even if you have to practice, but make sure that you have those 3 steps. The other thing that I want to say that came through my mind is, when I get a thank you card from somebody that I've done a story on, that is huge. I put that up on my wall at work. That's huge, and I'm going to remember you because I really did something to help you, and that's a personal connection that you've made, and you stand out. And so whenever that happens, and that rarely happens, that stands out for me. That means that you're going to be somebody that I want to cover again.
I love that, because it's so rare to get those
is.
thank yous. Especially if you're in the media. It's probably no secret, but you probably don't get a lot of thank yous.
No, and like Bob, building off what Bob said, in business, you're building relationships, right, to run your business. Well, that's what's important to us, is relationships. We're in a business, we're trying to build relationships. We want to know the people that are movers and shakers in our town, and people who know about certain things, so that when something happens, I'm like, oh, I'm going to call John, he knows all about this. And so we're building that Rolodex, so to speak, and those thank you notes keep you in top of mind when we need to go back to you for whatever your expertise is.
I think you've both also touched on something really important about the relationships that you build with the people that you're talking to. So with the business owners, with their employees, with people in the community who can become experts when you're telling stories. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, because a lot of what we talk with our clients about is, how do you become someone who's relevant to the media? And I think one of the biggest ways you do that is by offering to help, even when it may not help you. So you're not just contacting Bob and Ann when you have a story you want covered, but when you can help them. So perhaps the train derailment in Ohio, for example, great example of supply chain impact. But also, we have so much happening in our community as far as, do we have experts on the contaminants? Do we, what are the rules like here? If something were to happen here, what are the protocols, as my community say? Things like that. So as you start thinking about a story like that, start thinking about, gosh, well, my neighbor Joe, actually, he's in charge of the, blah, blah, blah plan in case there's a, a train derailment or something. Gosh, I'm going to connect Joe to Ann, because maybe that would be helpful. Maybe Ann doesn't know Joe, and maybe Ann's trying to find Joe. Something like that would be helpful. And I think, we tend to think about it, how can we help? How can we connect? as far as when we're helping other businesses and helping our clients. But that's also important when we're talking about the media and how do, Ann and I will have conversations where I'll say, hey, I know this attorney who's an expert on, insert subject matter. Would that be helpful to you in this story? Things like that. Are there other ways, Ann, that businesses could be helpful?
There's so many ways, and you're listing a lot of them right there. First of all, we need to build a relationship, and there's some things that sometimes what's helpful is if you know of something that's going to happen ahead of time and you let me know about it. I always appreciate that. And once we build that relationship, there's that trust, and it's like, well, you know what, Ann, this is going to happen tomorrow, but you can't say anything, but at least you can kind of get that in your brain so you're ready to go with whatever happens and the impacts of that story. Like, let's say, tomorrow GM's going to announce they're building a new battery plant in downtown Lansing, or something like that. And you are in the know of that, and we have a relationship, and you trust me, and you call and say, hey, this is going to be a big announcement tomorrow. I'm just giving you the skinny, but, you might want to line up some experts, or, so-and-so is going to be in town, or those kinds of things are very helpful for us because, like Julie said, our deadlines are day of. We're trying, and also be available if we call you and you're one of our experts. Like, we're usually like, we need you now, not, and if you're having an event, don't have it at 4 p.m. Have it earlier, late morning, early afternoon, so that we can get a crew there, because sometimes you might not get a reporter. You might get a photographer who comes, and and we have a lot of young people in this market, and they don't necessarily know about whatever. So give them as much information as you can. Give them something to walk away with on paper. Help them with their line of questioning, because sometimes they're not really well versed. They're running to 8 different events, and they're just trying to,
That's so true. A lot of times they just have a media release that their assignment editor's given them and said,
go do this.
Go do this. So when you meet them, be prepared and be organized and say, this is the story. Here's what I can help you with.
Yes.
Here are the people that you can talk to.
Okay, so we've talked about the human element, having the real person, aspect of the story. What else are you looking for? Are you looking for data, statistics, how much information, or is that not something you're looking for? Bob, what are you looking for?
TV is visual,
yes.
Right? So we're looking for visual. We're looking for a story to tell that's interesting. So make sure they have B-roll. Make sure that if they don't have B-roll, they have enough images that we could create something that's worthy. Make sure it's high resolution. Make it so easy for the reporter that they don't have to think about anything other than writing the story. And sometimes you can even write the story for them, which I've done with Wharton Center before, because I've been like, look, I know you're short on resources, and I've established those relationships. So what can I do to make it easy for you to cover us? I've got the images for you. I've got the B-roll for you. We're good friends. You want me to write something for you and just send it to you? How long do you want it? I mean, I'm going to make it so easy for them. And I think about with Wharton Center, we have shows that come in that the Department of Theater has produced, the students. So I will have a media juncture in the morning. That's so key. Make sure it's early in the morning, like 10 is probably a good time right after the morning meeting. And I'll have the actors go through a couple of lines and do a couple of the scenes, and then cut that real quick, and then here's your interviews. You can do one over here, you can do one over here, and you can do one over here, and boom, it's over in a half hour. Everyone's happy, everyone's gone, and it's good. But plan ahead of time. I think of other businesses like photography business, for instance. Offered to take some pictures of the newsroom. Offered to, hey, that I'm in this business. This is what I do. How can I help you? Send donuts to the newsroom. Just anything to make you present so they know that you're available and always be available.
That's a really interesting point, too. Bob was sharing with us earlier that following the events at MSU, newsrooms in Colorado were sending food here to the newsrooms, just as a way to empathize and sympathize, really, because they, having gone through similar situations where like there is no time to eat, these people are on the run, and a way to show support. So that's one way I know that it's memorable enough that you brought it up in passing conversation this morning.
Yeah.
Newsrooms get a lot of food, right?
Yes.
How much food do you get, Ann?
Oh my gosh, there's
lots of
always food. Yes, there were punchkis all over the place yesterday, but yeah, I mean, and it gets eaten, trust me. People are hungry, they're on the run. Kristen from my station here, I don't know where she's going today, but I don't know if you're going to get lunch, Kristen. But but when she gets back to the station, I can guarantee you someone brought something in, and it is nice because it's a jam-packed day, and there's not a lot of time, and we're rolling. And and a big part of it is too, and having that 10 o'clock press conference is important, because if news starts breaking during the day, and your thing is at 2, guess what? No one's coming.
No way. Yeah.
So.
It's got to be a really big deal if they're going to stop what they're doing. And also, even just mentioning Kristen over there, reporters aren't the only people that you should be making relationships with, right? I mean, everyone involved in the newsroom has a role to play, and their input is valuable. I know that oftentimes, depending on resources and where they're being sent to or what stories they're covering, photographers will sit in on the editorial meetings. They will pitch stories, and the editors, photographers, assistants, you name it, they're all part of the community in the newsroom. In fact, we used to talk about, the whole purpose of a diverse newsroom is to take, and be representative as much as possible of the community that you're serving. And so, when I was an executive producer, I wanted everyone in the newsroom to weigh in with their opinions and to share their story ideas, because that was a reflection of the communities where they lived. So I don't know how many of you thought of saying hello to her today, but that might be a great relationship to start as well.
That is such a great point. I started out as a one-man band, so I was out there filming everything. And then sometimes I would be the videographer with a reporter, and so often you'd go places and they'd greet the reporter and they'd act like you're not even there. Well, guess what? I'm going to be the reporter soon. So every single person that you come into contact with is a potential customer, and you greet everyone and you treat everyone, no matter who they are, as if they are really important. And I always say that to my interns working out. I always say, someday you might hire me. Mm-hmm. So treat everyone equal.
Absolutely. One of my interns, I don't know if you, I guess he's in Chicago now, but he's often on like Good Morning America. But Terrell Owens was one of my interns. I can name probably half a dozen interns who are now, big somewhere in some big city. And I'm really glad I treated them well, because that would not go well for me otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a fun question. We talked about the food you receive. What is the weirdest or most memorable press release or gift that you have received that's been sent to the newsroom? While you're thinking about it, I don't know if you'll be able to think of something. I will tell you what mine is. When I was right out of college. I had just moved to Richmond, Virginia, and I was a morning show producer producing the 5 a.m. show, had no idea what I was doing, right? Market 64, so I'm like, in this city that who knew I was gonna move to Virginia? And one day I received addressed to me as the producer, something from Hanes Her Way.
Oh, wow.
A big old pair of granny panty underwear.
No.
They were pitching some sort, I don't even know what they were pitching, but I opened this box and I've got this triple XL, pair, and I'm like, what? And all the people in the newsroom are like, what are you? Because they didn't know it was like a press, box that I was sent, and I was, so that is my most memorable. A pair of underwear pitching whatever they were pitching. Anything interesting, guys? Anything you can top that?
I cannot top that. No. I cannot top that.
No.
Okay, all of you try to top that. I think you should send in some sort of memorable gift. I want to open it up to our audience and ask any questions. We're gonna kind of wrap up our Q&A and give you plenty of time to be able to network with Ann and Bob before you leave, so you can ask them your questions directly, get to know them, start building those relationships. But before we do that, do we have any questions from the audience? anything that you're thinking about or wondering about how to formulate a story, Ruben?
Yeah, I was just curious if you have recently, or if you maybe have some tips for us on how this region can get more coverage on innovation, tech, and kind of the sleepy underground tech and innovation community that is here that not a lot of people understand or know about. How can that be a story worth reporting on more with what MSU and Foundation and many others like our venture studio in Rio Town is doing? How can that be more of a story here for the capital city?
Well, what are you I mean, give us those little nuggets of what you're innovating. You know, what are you making? What things are coming for the future out of these ventures, you know, because those tactical things that we might be able to see, or those are cool stories. And the fact that they're rolling out of a university town is even more interesting, I think, to me. What impact is it having around the world, and what are the things that we can expect in the future from the people here in our town? I think that's cool.
Thank you.
I'd find out who and maybe there isn't, but I would do an analysis of all the local media and even national media. After you pitch your story, say somebody national picks it up, then use that leverage to say, here's a story that whoever picked up, and let me tell you that I have somebody here locally that could talk about how it's impacting their life or how it could impact their life, and show me visually how it could do that. I think that's
those are
an
cool
important
stories, and we have relationships with CNN and NBC News, obviously, and so a lot of times every day our content manager will tell them what we're working on, and so they'll get a list of, this story, this story, this story, and then they'll say, oh, you know what, that's a cool story. Can we have a copy of that story? And then we'll send them the story, and sometimes they'll air it as is. Sometimes they'll cut it down to a smaller thing, but like Bob was saying, then you can say, oh, my thing appeared on CNN or NBC News.
And shout out to Ann, because she did something for my nonprofit years ago. The nonprofit's been in existence, Epiphany, now for 12 or 13 years now, but Ann heard about it, and she said, because I think I pitched to the station about it, and she's like, this is a really cool idea. I know Steve Hartman from CBS News. Let me tell him about it. And she told Steve Hartman about it, and Steve Hartman came into Lansing and covered us, and then it just blew up after that. It was like, it's just been amazing. But because we had that relationship, and Ann was like, oh, you know what, I want to help you. Here's somebody that I know that can help you, because everyone here locally has connections nationally too. So.
And the thing about that is it puts our town in the spotlight nationally. And, Steve ended up coming back for another story that I did with Tony, the fire.
Yes.
He was just a little guy that used to stop at the fire station every day and sit and talk to the firefighters, and they kind of took care of him as he was aging. And Steve came back and did that story, and it puts us in the national spotlight that we're a great place to be, a great place to live. And did it do anything for me personally? No, but it made me feel good about where we are.
Right. And it put our community in the spotlight, which is great.
Yeah.
So, and if you're interested in it, think about other things that you're interested in with your business, or even with other businesses, and think about that, because we're going to be interested in that too, if we can tell that story easily.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also, this is where relationships come into play as well, and part of building a relationship is getting to know the person who's telling the story. So my point there being finding out, looking through and watching the news coverage to see which reporters at Channel 10 or at Fox or the CBS station, which reporters are the ones who are covering the tech stories, which reporters are the ones who are interested and plugged into the business community, because they may have a passion there, they may have an interest there, and then that might be the person that you pitch the story to as well. Or that you call up and you say, hey, there's this really cool thing going on, I'm not sure how we make it a story, because everything's a story. It's how do we create the story? And so getting to know the people behind the stories, what they like to cover. I also think it's really important to know what's happening within kind of the news community, or what the kind of feeling is at the moment. So Obviously, we know what the news is covering a lot of right now here in our East Lansing community. And I share that because you know what they really want to tell? Positive stories. Our entire community right now needs all the positive stories we can get. Not that we want to, you know, downplay or ignore, of course we don't, you know, with the tragedy, but our entire community really wants to be reminded of the good things that are happening here. And so when you're talking about tech and innovation and what students are doing, those are, I think right now is the prime time to be telling those stories.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the whole tragedy that happened last week, I was so impressed with the authorities having the news conference, and they didn't really have much to say, but they spoke. So even if you're dealing with a controversial issue and a reporter comes to you and says, and you can't say anything, say something. Say something. The worst thing you can say is no comment. That, because if you're not going to tell the story, I'm still going to tell the story. So
you can be a part of it, or
you can be a part of it,
yeah.
or you don't have to be a part of it. I'd rather have your narrative than anything. So, and I think that's, you know, I remember being a reporter and getting no comment. And it was like, that's the most stupidest thing I've heard of, because we're going to give the comment.
Helpful.
It's not helpful.
Yeah. I think too, Bob, along those same lines, how often, and I'm sure we're all guilty of this to some degree, but how often do we complain about the stories the media is covering? Anyone maybe? How often have you pitched stories to the media? Have you given feedback on, hey, like you're covering this, but did you know that there's this really cool thing happening, or this thing that's been not talked about? Maybe it's not being talked about because they don't know about it. No one's telling them about it. Maybe it's not that they're choosing to not cover it. Maybe they just don't know. I once got into a little bit of an argument with someone because this was like back when COVID was first starting, and there was a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of things we just didn't know. And someone was complaining about how the media was lying about these things. And I said, well, the media is reporting what's being told to them by officials. If you have a different storyline, and this was a doctor I was talking to, I said, if you have a different storyline, are you talking to the media? Are you telling them what you know? Are you presenting yourself as the subject matter expert that you are? Because if not, you really can't complain about what the media is covering, right? So I appreciate, you talking about the officials and being very forthcoming. Oftentimes, when the media is reporting a story, they might only have the officials talking about something, and they really need the business community to be sharing their viewpoint on it.
And because it isn't up to us, people, I think sometimes, they don't know, it's not up to me to say things. I'm just reporting. This is what they say, this is what they say. My opinion doesn't matter. I'm trying to give an objective viewpoint of the story. But I'll get emails about, well, you didn't say this and you didn't say that. And I'm like, okay, well, will you say that on camera? Well, no. And it's like, well, okay, well, then I'm sorry. But until someone wants to say that on camera, well, a lot of people have their thoughts and feelings, but they don't want to go public with it. And it's like, well, okay, then that makes it kind of hard for us to tell that story. So, if you feel that passionately about it, I'm happy to sit down with you and put a camera on and tell the world,
Andy?
Hi, my name's Andy. I've seen a comment and a question. I've seen a lot of tech founders and tech companies. As a founder myself, my news is a terrible story most of the time. My news is a product release. That's not actually news. That's not a story. And so when I think about what I want news to cover, of course I want them to cover my product release, but so I've got to think in a different way. Anyways, just that conversation about how do you pitch this stuff. But my question is about what is your relationship with other local news outlets? So I tend to read LSJ, that's kind of just like my go-to. If I'm pitching something local, do I do all three? Like, what's the sort of deal? Like, what does that look like? I know everybody's understaffed as well, and I'm just curious about
Pitch
that.
it to everybody, because you don't know where it's going to stick.
100%.
We're all doing different things. We all have different approaches. You may not notice that, but we all have different management who, I may think something's a story and my manager might say, no, we're not doing that. So yeah, by all means, pitch it to all of us. If we all do it, that's okay.
And you never know those people who, I work a lot with if you tell me you're a reporter with something, if you have a blog or something, I'm going to work with you. Just because as a business, as Wharton Center, I'm talking, I want you to cover the story. I want you to do something, because guess what? This has happened before, where we've had a reporter who was with a cable station, and I'd give him tons of stories. He ended up going to one of the network news stations, and then he remembered me, and guess what? I made a relationship, I made coverage. So every single person is your ally to tell your story. I don't care how small they are. And that's one of the things that I argue with a lot, well, in the beginning, with like, don't waste your time on that, that's not gonna do anything for us. And I'm like, yes, it is gonna do something for us. Relationships are gonna do something for us.
As a general rule, it's safe to say that the reporters at different stations are not sharing content, they're not sharing B-roll. The exceptions for that might be a situation where maybe there's a press conference and maybe there's what they call, a pool photographer who then is responsible for capturing the event and then disseminating it to everyone. And so that's why sometimes you'll see something shared like that, but as a general rule, what you send to one will not get to the others, if that was part of your question. And really great example, Bob. I love that about don't think that your story is too small either. Our Expert Connections, our pandemic TV show on ABC turned YouTube show now, we've made it in Canada. We've been in Yahoo Finance and different publications that will pick it up, especially digital content. As Bob was saying earlier, write the story, because some outlets will publish it verbatim because they have this need for digital content.
Let me just say too, use social media. Try to post at least something once a day about your business, whether it's behind the scenes or something interesting you're working on, because reporters are on social media, and if you are someone that they start to follow because you've posted something of interest that they saw on their feed, a lot of them, they'll pitch stuff they saw on Facebook in the meetings, like, oh, I saw this on Facebook and nobody's done this story and I want to be the first. And so by all means, use Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, as much as you can.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. This is really helpful. My name is Tom. I'm the lead pastor at Sycamore Creek, and we definitely pitch things to the media in ways that you all have talked. But there are times, at least once or twice a year, where the media shows up at something that we've done, and maybe it's because we have a really strong social media presence, that I haven't thought through as well what it is, what's the story. It's like, I think Kristen came out to something we were doing this summer. And I'm curious about what's helpful to you when I haven't thought through what you're looking for. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing a stream of consciousness, like when I'm standing in front of the camera, trying to get all kinds of stuff that maybe you'll find something that's helpful in there. Or other times I'm like, maybe I'm talking too much, like trying to be soundbite-y or something like that. I'm just curious if you would when the media shows up and you didn't plan. I'm thrilled when that happens. But how it's helpful from your side for the way that we stand in front of a camera and talk.
I would say be brief, don't talk real slow and thoughtful. Kind of think of 3 bullet points in your head before we come that you have planned out about whatever the topic may be. And then we'll ask you, we'll bounce from there. Don't try to be overly complicated because we're trying to remember most of these stories are 40 seconds to a minute and a half that we're going to air. So we're going to take snippets of what you're saying, and really we're just writing to the bare bones of your story. So a lot of times when I've gone to a story and the person's trying to make it like they're telling me all the stuff that is kind of way over my head, I'm like, you know what, I got to dumb this down because I have 40 seconds to tell this story. So what is the bottom line here? So I think with television, with newspaper, that's a different story because they have, they can include much more information. But with television, we're just, the basics.
Can I go off of that with television? I just have to say that ask the question, what are you looking for? And take some time and write down those 3 bullets. But the most important thing is be you, because you can't be anyone but you. And even if you have to look down during the interview, that's okay. Like, that's how we normally would be. I think a lot of people are intimidated with television, that they're not going to look good or they're not going to say the right thing. But what happens is you don't look good and you don't say the right thing because you're so nervous about what you're going to look like and what you're going to say. So just be who you are.
Yeah.
And I always do, before I go out in interviews, and I can always tell, even when they come on the set, I can tell people get nervous. So I'm like, okay, let's breathe together. Let's, take a deep breath. Let's just be you. Who are you? And we start talking, and that eases people.
I had a client tell me how much they appreciated that. He said, Bob Hoffman helped me just breathe. Like, yep, that's a good tip. Number one, just breathe. Yeah. I'll tell you what I just did when Kristen came in, because I thought, oh, wait, the media is here covering this? I didn't think of what I was going to say about this event. I asked her, what brought you out here today? And sometimes the photographer may not know because they were just told, go shoot this event, this thing is happening. They might not even get any details or even know what the event is because they're running, right? But if you ask them, what is the story that you're telling today? Because sometimes a reporter or photographer might even have an idea in mind. Again, they're so busy, they're thinking, I'm looking for soundbite X. And they wouldn't normally say that to you, but if you ask them, then they might say that. And I think for me, when I asked her, that helped jog in my mind, okay, what do I want that to be? Or if she's maybe close but not quite, how do I kind of reframe this so that I'm getting the story out of it that I want? And I'll tell you, like for this event today, I thought, how do I reframe this so it's not just about the event today and just about Bob and Ann being here, but about how amazing our startup community is and how many incredible stories we have to tell, and helping that become the storyline. So I started thinking through, how do I reframe this so that it's the message that we want to get out there. So Bob and Ann, any final thoughts as we wrap up? Anything we did not talk about that you want to share? Maybe one final tip for our business community.
Well, I'm looking for stories. I'm looking for good stories. I'm looking for impact stories of people making a difference in our community. Maybe that's your product that's helping people make a difference in the community. I want to know about that, but I want to know it from an angle of the human angle of it. So call me. I'm always looking for stories. I'm always looking for that human connection. And maybe it's something that you're like, I know this is making a human connection, but help me think this through. I'll do that. I'll help you. I've got, I don't delete things. Like, I just have this heart and I want to cover everything that I can. So I make a list of things. And I might say, well, this is the wrong time. But you know what, this could be something in 6 months from now that we can cover. But I'm in a little different position because I'm only covering the good. And you're covering everything as a newsroom.
I'm covering everything, but it doesn't mean that I'm not looking for those stories, because I will pitch them in our editorial meetings, and I may not come out and do them, but somebody else might come out and do them. And we have a revolving newsroom in this market. We have reporters that stay for 2 years and then they leave. So it's important to make connections with the people who are here, that are going to be here, that are part of this community, that have been part of this community. And we will, talk in our editorial meetings and, make sure if it's something that we think is newsworthy and is making an impact. We love great news, because you know what? During COVID, I would go to the grocery store and people were like, oh, I really like watching you on the news, but you know what? I don't really watch the news because it's so depressing. And I'm like, but we do have good stories. And I feel like people don't realize that. And so we need more good. So if you have good, please let me know, because we're always looking for it.
Can I say one more thing too?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you have, and I don't know where you are, but if your business has extra funds, then hire somebody to do that for you, because you can't be an expert in everything. That's one of the things that I learned when I was young, is that I always tried to handle everything and do everything, and I can't. So find out who is doing an amazing job. Call Julie, call a marketing company, call a PR company to help you with that, because you don't have time for that. If you don't have those resources, then sit down with your product and tell me, you're launching products all the time. Who's that product helping? And why is it important? It's helping somebody, or else it wouldn't be launched, right? So who is that helping, and how is it affecting everyone else?
Bob and Ann, thank you so much for sharing your insights today, guys. We really appreciate you coming out and braving the weather.
Well, you're welcome.
That's
Happy to
fun,
be here.
yeah.
Just a couple quick notes before we get into networking. For those who are here who are not typically a part of our Startup Grind Lansing events, we are a part of the largest community of startup resources in the world. And so make sure to go to startupgrind.com, check out the resources that are there. There are opportunities to connect you to funding, to vendors who will help you transform or start to grow or scale wherever you are in your business. There are resources to help. We also have our global conference coming up. I can't even believe it's just over a month away, April 11th and 12th out in Redwood City, California. Ruben and Dave and I will be there. I don't know who else in the room might be going. We do have a couple free conference passes left. So if you're interested in going and would like to get into the conference for free, you have to get out there and all that on your own. But let me know or let Ruben know and we can connect you with that. And make sure that you are subscribed at startupgrind.com/Lansing for all of our emails and updates and events. Our next event will be in March. I'm drawing a blank on the date. Oh yeah, St. Patrick's Day.
Wow.
It'll be right here. It'll be posted on our website soon. How about that? March 17th, it'll be an Ask Me Anything event, and we're going to focus on recruitment, talent, sourcing, and all things Ask Me Anything. So, so come with your questions. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you in March.